Hello and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here for the very first time, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name's Hannah and on my channel I post a lot of content about anti-MLM, so I always link a playlist at the beginning of my videos right here for you. This is my big anti-MLM playlist, over 180 videos on it at this point. And if that content does interest you, I would love it if you consider subscribing, liking this video. Those things really help to support the channel and I appreciate you so much for doing that. For today's video, I'm bringing you another MLM horror stories. These are viewer stories, so if you have your own that you would like to send in and have considered for a video, please don't hesitate to do that. I save all of these stories in a folder in my email and I can never have too many. But before we get too far into the video, summer is here and I want to know about your travel plans. Where are you headed? What sights are you seeing? What cool experiences are you having? Summer is the perfect time to travel and I'm really excited because we're planning a trip to Tampa soon. Last summer we went to Cancun. It was a blast, and something that always transports me right back there is the perfume that I wore on that trip. Versace Bright Crystal. As soon as I smell this fragrance, it's like I'm back at that resort poolside with a margarita in hand. It's kind of wild how connected certain scents are to our memories, and Scentbird is the perfect place to find your new summer vacation fragrance. I'm so excited to have Scentbird as the sponsor of today's video. If you've been watching my channel for a long time now, you know they are my favorite fragrance subscription service, where you can get a 30-day supply of a designer fragrance for just $17. Every month you're in full control of which fragrances you'd like to try, so there are no surprises here. The packaging is perfect for travel. The glass vial is protected by a case, and the case has a locking feature, so you're not going to spray fragrance all over your luggage. Been there, done that. It's not fun. But with Scentbird, I feel really comfortable popping these into my luggage, knowing that they're going to be safe and they don't take up a lot of room. I can't recommend a new fragrance for your upcoming trip highly enough. It feels really special to treat yourself to this new fragrance that is associated with that trip or with that event, and every time you smell it, you're brought back to those amazing memories. But full-size bottles of perfume are clunky, they're fragile, and they're incredibly expensive. That Versace perfume that I took to Cancun, that's $105 for a full-size bottle of it, and I certainly A, didn't want to spend that much money, and B, didn't trust myself keeping that glass bottle safe in travel. So I'm really grateful for Scentbird because that 30-day supply was more than enough for my trip, and it was only $17, which is a really cost-effective way to travel with a new fragrance. Scentbird has all the name brands like Prada, Dolce & Gabbana, Gucci, but they also carry a lot of amazing niche scents as well, so you can find your favorite and smell unique. Recently, I discovered Christian Siriano Eau La Rouge, Kenzie Zest for Life, and House of Beau Agua de Santos. And of these three, I think Zest for Life is going to be the perfect one for my upcoming Tampa trip. It's super bright and citrusy, and the fragrance card it comes with says that it has mango nectar, pineapple, grapefruit, lemon, and tangerine. Really light and fresh, perfect for summer. If you'd like to give Scentbird a try, you can visit the link in the description box below and use my code Alonzo55 at checkout, or you can scan the QR code on the screen right here. This is going to give you 55% off your first month at Scentbird, meaning that you're going to get your first designer fragrance for just over $7, available in the US and Canada. Thank you, Scentbird, for sponsoring today's video and for your continued support of the channel. Now let's read some stories. This story says, "Hey Hannah, okay, here it goes. I've been waiting years to share part of my story, and honestly, it's going to be hard for me to get through. I spent the last 4 years recovering from being in Arbonne for 3 years, and the deprogramming work is something I never thought would be this intense. In an effort to maybe help others and to get it out, here's my story. In December of 2014, my beloved dad unexpectedly passed away. I had just gotten married, and obviously having the happiest and saddest moments of my life in a matter of months was intense. While there's no one way to deal with grief, I had zero clue how to move forward with my life. Before he passed away, I had been in touch with a friend about her Arbonne business. She hadn't recruited me. Instead, she had just shared some products that I was interested in, and I ended up saying, hey, I should do this with you, and that's how I joined the business. I was an elementary teacher at the time and had been looking for ways to supplement my income because #teacher salary. Hi Zeke. He has been pestering me for several minutes. I keep just letting him get it out, but he's not getting it out, so I'm gonna give him his moment in the spotlight. Hi. How's it going? Do you want to come up here and tell everybody hi? Come on, let's do it. There he is, everybody. We all know that Zeke is the star of the show. Okay, this is his channel. I'm just a guest star on it. And he knows that to be true as he rubs his face all over the lens and gets his little slobber all over it. Now that you've gotten the attention you deserve, do you think you can be quiet so I can finish the story? All right, see ya. At the time, my story, or my why, included my grief over my dad. I was embarrassed to say that yes, I absolutely used the pain and some of the lessons I was learning as I was grieving to tell my story and convince people to join my business. I genuinely thought I was helping, and I didn't see it as using my own trauma, but now I know that it is. I told the story well, and the more I told it, the more my upline wanted me to share it with others. Every event we would go to, they would have me share my story. I said things like, life is too short not to be doing something I love, and after losing my dad, I realized that I needed a community and personal growth and to make health a priority. It started to feel gross and manipulative when my upline continued to ask me to tell my story over and over again, and there wouldn't be a dry eye in the house. I started on the 30 Days to Healthy Living program right away. I lost a bunch of weight and I gained my eating disorder back. I had recovered from disordered eating much earlier in my life. To this day, I still have anxiety and stress about food because of how invested I had to be in that program in order to sell it. I promoted to area manager, which is the top 11% of the company, in 3 months and was all in. Once I promoted, my upline's upline started to step away a bit. She wasn't saying much about it, but we all noticed her absence a lot. People on our team started stepping up and leading, but I couldn't help but wonder where our other leader had gone. Turns out she had traveled to support her daughter who was going through chemo in another state. She completely stepped away from her business so that she could be with her daughter, as she should, and we all kept working. During this time, because the rest of us were working so hard towards our promotions, she ended up promoting and getting a huge raise, but she had done literally nothing. At the time, she would share her story, and I thought it was a perfect example of why the business model works. But now I see it as proof that the people at the top are benefiting from the work of all of the people at the bottom, and I wasn't even at the bottom. That is a great point. That whole situation is a perfect example that your success in an MLM is pretty dependent on the efforts of other people, considering that she stepped away from her Arbonne business completely to go support her daughter, like you said, as she should, and she's still promoted and she still got a huge raise, even though she wasn't doing any work at all. That's absolutely proof that a lot of the money that people are making, if they are at the top of their MLM, is off the backs of other people. I lost my rank of area manager a couple times and gained it back. By the last year with the company, I was starting to feel disillusioned and disheartened. I was doing literally everything they were telling me to do, and my business wasn't growing. The second and third time I promoted, I did it without a team because I started to feel gross about recruiting people. I spent more or less $10,000 of my own money in the course of 3 years trying to help myself promote. It worked, but it wasn't sustainable and certainly not profitable. Toward the end of my time in the company, I started asking questions of my upline about what else I could do to promote and build my business. I was ready for feedback and constructive criticism. I was coachable and wanted to do everything I could. No one had any answers for me. Even the executive national vice presidents in my upline had nothing to say. All I got were answers about my mindset and questions about what personal development book I was reading. And I'm so sorry that Zeke is going crazy in the background of this video. I just have to read over him. I've paused too many times. And then my husband started having conversations with me about the business, about the time that it was taking away from him and our baby, about how much I was investing, not just financially. When I talked to my trusted upline about these conversations with him, she literally said that I should just give him more. I am not going to read this part out loud. I'll just leave it on the screen here. Your upline suggested you should do some favors for your husband so that he would shut up. Apologies for being so crass, but that's legitimately what was said. I was shocked, and that was the thing that shook me out of my trance. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped talking about it on my social media. I found perfectly wonderful products that were cheaper and just as clean or cleaner than Arbonne products to fill my cabinets with. And I felt so much better. Finding the anti-MLM movement has been such a gift for me. So validating, even though it is hard to know how many perfectly lovely people get caught up in them. If there is someone out there that's considering joining one, my advice to them would be, do not do it. It's not worth all the sacrifices you'll have to make, no matter how fabulous they make their lives look. I still have a ton of work to do to recover from the few years I spent as a network marketer, but I'm on my way, and I'm so glad your content is out there so others can feel as validated as I have. Thank you for saying that. That is so heartwarming, and I appreciate you saying that so much. That is one of the main goals of these horror story videos, is to give a platform for people who have terrible things happen to them in MLMs and to share it in this public way so that other people who have been in the same situation can find validation in it. They can see parts of their story within your experience and they cannot feel so alone about it. Leaving an MLM, I can imagine, is a really isolating experience. You probably don't feel like you have a lot of people to turn to, or you don't have a lot of support in that decision, because obviously the people in the MLM on your team want more than anything for you to stay because it benefits them. So when you leave, I'm sure that it feels like you don't have very much support in that decision until you can hear the experiences of others and you can feel validated in your own experiences within your own MLM. The part of your story that's really sticking with me is that you were saying towards the end of your time in the company, you wanted to find non-recruitment ways to make money and to promote in the business, and none of your leaders really had any suggestions for you. That is so telling that you're like, hey, I want to further myself in this company, but I don't really feel good about recruiting. What else can I do? I'm ready. Lay it on me. And they're like, that's kind of the only way to go. And they don't have any other suggestions. And instead, they're trying to tell you to focus more on your mindset and your personal development. Come on. Those things are not going to make you any money, okay? You listening to all the podcasts in the world and reading every self-help book you can is not going to help your Arbonne business grow. It's just not. What is going to help it grow is recruits, but they won't say that, even though it's the truth. It makes a lot of sense that you did come to that conclusion that recruiting felt icky and that you didn't want to do it anymore, and that eventually led to the end of your time with Arbonne. I think a lot of people who've been in MLMs can really relate to that experience in the sense that they kind of realize what the scheme is all about and that they can't make it to where they want to be without recruiting, and that's ultimately what leads them down this path of leaving the company. So thank you for sharing your experience and for providing that validation to other people who may have experienced the same thing. This story says, "Hi Hannah, I'm sorry this is so long, but I wanted to give you lots of tea. I saw your video where you had a story from someone who was somewhat successful in their MLM and you got so excited about that story. I had to send you mine. Initially, I just wrote this out as an exercise because it was cathartic, but after seeing that video, I knew you would enjoy my story. Please keep me anonymous. I'm actually one of the success stories. The first part of my story might sound like I'm trying to recruit you, but don't worry. You have to understand the good, how I got hooked and why I stayed so long to understand why so many people join these things. I actually got started as a regular customer with Beachbody. I'm an opera singer and I had just finished grad school and was feeling insecure because I had gained some weight and my career path ahead was difficult. And I wanted to lose the grad school weight, and a friend from college was doing it, so I joined her group and I did a program. My roommate and I did it together, both got great results, and we were super excited about it. My friend tried to recruit me because I was such an enthusiastic participant, but I declined. Then, a couple months later, I had a couple friends who wanted to purchase the program based on my results, and when I referred them to her, she told me to just sign them up myself so I could get the commission. I had already paid the startup cost with my own purchase a couple months earlier, so it didn't cost me anything. I signed up their moms too, and my first day in an MLM, I had already made a profit. I had no idea how rare this is at the time. I figured anyone could do the same thing. I was in the small subset of people who joined because they genuinely loved the products and felt that their life had improved as a result, and genuinely wanted to share a product that I thought would help someone. I hit big sales numbers because I really loved the products. Suddenly, I was on all these recognition boards in the coach groups, and I was being shouted out as a success starter. My first 3 months, I qualified for a free ticket to Summit, which I wasn't planning to attend because summers are usually a great time for opera singers to book gigs, but the contract I accepted ended a couple of weeks before, so I went to that too. I had grown my business really rapidly, and a lot of people on my team and my upline and her upline wanted to meet me and talk with me. It was a very confidence-boosting thing. I now realize that this is a manipulation tactic to make you feel special and valued, when what you are actually valued for is the money you are making them. And I did feel important. When I look back now, it should have been a red flag that I was hitting important ranks and constantly at the top of leaderboards when I wasn't actually making that much money. It makes you think that you're doing a lot better than you are. But the first 4 years were a steady trajectory upwards. And when I hit $45,000 in a year, I figured it would just keep going and I'd be making 6 figures in a couple more years. But $45,000 would be my highest paid year. I was in the top 0.5% of the entire company. I was consistently on the top top 10 of my very large team, and my max annual income was $45,000 before taxes. But between all the recognition, the gifts the company and your upline send you, the free trips, etc., your perceived success far outweighs your actual success. This is a really good point that I don't think I've talked about much before, which is that being in the top ranks of an MLM company, or being in the top 1%, or earning the trips or earning the incentives, those things don't always correlate to a good income or a livable income or a full-time income. And you're right that there is kind of a discrepancy between the praise and the recognition that you're getting and your position within the pyramid or within the leaderboards, and that's kind of your perceived success, but your actual success monetarily isn't that great. I mean, honestly, $45,000 in a year is not terrible, especially when we're talking about an MLM. That's pretty rare, actually. But it is worth mentioning that you were expecting that you'd be on this upward trajectory towards six figures, and that never happened. It did kind of cap at $45,000. Now, while that amount isn't terrible for an MLM, I feel like you would probably expect more if you were at the top of the company, or if you were in the top, would you say 0.5% of the company. $45,000 doesn't really match up to what you would imagine somebody at the tippy top of the pyramid would be making. You see these income disclosures and you see that they're making millions of dollars or whatever. So it's very insightful that you're reporting that you were at the top of the company, but that amount that you were making isn't what you would think that someone at the top would be making. And you make a great point that this whole amount is before taxes. That is something we have to reiterate over and over again, that the amount the MLM pays you, the amount that's deposited into your bank account, and the amount that you see on the income disclosures is before taxes. It's not accounting for that. When you're in an MLM, you're taxed as an independent contractor, as a self-employed independent contractor. And me, as somebody who does YouTube full-time, that's also the way that I'm taxed. So speaking from personal experience, I know I have to pay somewhere between 20 to 30% back in taxes. So I would think that that's a safe ballpark to be thinking of when we're thinking of people in MLMs as well. Sure, you may have gotten $45,000 from the company, but you're probably going to have to pay somewhere around 20 to 30% of that back. That's not all for you to keep. That's not your take-home amount. So when you consider that as well, then the amount of money you're left over especially does not reflect what you would think somebody at the top of an MLM company would be making. The T on the trips. You pay a $300 non-refundable down payment to get on the trip for the following year. Then you spend the year qualifying for it. Wait a minute, you have to pay first before you even qualify for it? $300 non-refundable down payment to get on the trip, and then you have to qualify for it. No way, I actually did not know that. I knew that people in MLMs typically have to pay some amount for these free trips because they're not always free. There are some costs that you're going to have to cover yourself. But wouldn't you think that you would at least qualify for the trip first before you start paying for it? That's a bit surprising to me, actually, that you're going to have to pay up front for a trip that you haven't even qualified for. Your monthly sales are points, and you have to earn a certain amount of points every quarter to even qualify for the trip. If you don't, you're kicked off. Those points then translate into trip dollars that earn the cost of the trip. But even if you earn more than the cost of the trip, you can't apply those to the trip deposit, and you are also responsible for your own airfare, ground transportation, and gratuities at the resort. The deposit is non-refundable, even if you do not earn enough points to qualify and are kicked off, or if something comes up and you have to cancel. And if you don't earn enough trip dollars, you have to pay the rest. The only time the $300 was refunded was in 2020 and 2021 when the trip was canceled due to COVID. What I want to know is what kind of trip we're talking about here, because if this is an incentive trips or something that you have to qualify for or earn, essentially, this seems like a lot of costs for something that is supposed to be a reward to you. You're responsible for paying a non-refundable deposit and your airfare and your transportation and your gratuities at the resort. So what really is being covered here? I guess that would mean that maybe your hotel is covered and maybe your food, but that's still a lot of out-of-pocket costs that you're going to be spending to go on this trip that you're supposedly earning as some kind of reward. Honestly, you might as well just book a vacation yourself. Take you and your family, go have a nice trip. Don't have it be associated with an MLM in any way, because you're still spending a ton of money to do that. All of this information about the trips is very bizarre. I hit a point in my business where my growth stagnated and eventually started sliding back down. The reason? My downline wasn't recruiting. At this point, I had internalized internalized all the tropes and sayings and personal development hustle culture BS. I truly believed it was all on me to be a good leader and inspire. I ran so many trainings, and when those didn't work, my upline would say, well, your team will only do half of what you do. So I hustled and sold like crazy, hitting high sales numbers, and still didn't see them duplicating. It never occurred to me that they didn't have anyone to recruit because I had recruited basically their entire markets too. If an opera singer has done a Beachbody program, you can bet I was probably their coach. Saturation really is a thing. And thank you for making that point that in an MLM, your growth really is stagnated when you hit the point of market saturation and there aren't any more people to recruit. That's really eye-opening for you to say that your growth stopped when your downline members couldn't recruit at the same capacity. Perfect example of your success being reliant on the efforts of other people. And not to say that they're not putting in enough effort, because I'm sure in a lot of cases they were, but if you're working in a saturated market where there isn't anybody to recruit, then all of your efforts are kind of lost. There's not really anywhere else left to go. You can keep climbing that pyramid as long as there's people to put underneath you, but as soon as you hit that point of saturation, like you said, you start sliding back down. But since I didn't believe it at that time, I thought I must have some sort of internal block. You are so brainwashed by all the personal development that you assume that if it's not working, it's your mindset. I spent thousands on life coaches and manifestation courses, and still my income was declining. I even worked with a past life healer to try to clear karma from past lives that might be affecting this one. I don't even know if I believe in past lives. I would hear success stories from people who clearly had advantages, but if you pointed out those advantages, you were being negative, or you had a bad attitude or excuses. One prominent team from a wealthy southern city had massive success because their leader had already built huge wellness businesses and brought over her clientele and personal trainer friends, who signed up all of their clients right away. This entire team was wealthy to begin with, most of them being stay-at-home moms whose husbands earned multiple six figures. It's not hard to sell a $200 pack to someone with that much disposable income. It is much harder to sell it to a starving artist getting paid poverty wages and cobbling together an income from random gigs. The leader of that team shared on a team retreat how she had plateaued in her business, but when she and her husband decided to buy their beach house, it lit a fire under her and got her business to the next level. Meanwhile, most people in the MLM haven't even earned enough to pay their rent. My upline, when I told her that I was struggling and my income had fallen to $36,000, told me that I should be grateful and excited because that's still a full-time income. That's amazing. She was earning about $30,000 a month. Did she actually work 12 times as hard as the people on her team who got her there? I started seeing the cognitive dissonance of my upline saying things like, we're an elite team again this year, or we're the #1 team in the company, or I need some hungry women who want to run with me to elite. Who is we, Stacy? They know on some level that it's their downline that does all the work to get them there, but who gets the money? The perks, the special treatment, one person. The select few at the top of the pyramid. Oh, and those at the top who are making all the money will spend hundreds or thousands per week on Facebook and Instagram ads so that they can suck up all the other potential recruits for their own teams. Even when you're making 5 figures or more per month, you need to be constantly recruiting to replace people who leave and preserving your rank. The recognition and faux celebrity is like a drug, and it's always the same people in the top spots every year, with the occasional new face that keeps you thinking it might be possible for you too. Here, I want to talk about the celebrity aspect too. Those top-ranked people are like celebrities in our world. At all live events, people are swarming them and asking for pictures. If you're in their downline, you might be able to earn their time by hitting certain goals. Ew, that's disgusting. The last retreat that I qualified for but didn't go to, you could earn sitting at their table for a meal if you hit certain benchmarks. They named the prize, "You Can Sit With Us." I think they thought that would be funny, but that was the first time that I felt that twist in my gut that said, gross. You think you're so important that you can only have conversations with the people who make you the most money? I agree with you. That was my first gut reaction, is gross, ew. I understand that they're big shots in the world of this MLM and of this pyramid, and perhaps people within the company know them by name or know them to be the people at the top that they want to strive to be as well. But let me remind everybody that nobody outside these companies knows who these people are, genuinely. I could not tell you who's at the top of Beachbody. I couldn't even tell you who's in the top 10 of Beachbody. And I'm saying that as somebody who makes anti-MLM videos for my job. I do this for my job, but I still don't even know who's at the top of this company. Because ultimately, it's not that important in the real world. So what you're at the top of an MLM company? What does that really mean? What that really means is that you have a lot of people in your downline. What that means is that you've likely manipulated and preyed on a lot of people. And in my opinion, that's not something to be proud of or to praise. So yeah, it is pretty gross that these people think so highly of themselves that they think sitting with them and talking to them and being within their presence is a reward to some people. It is something to be earned by others. You would be nothing without us. You're downline. We put you on that stage. We did all the grunt work so that you could make all the money. And you look down upon us like we're little peons and think that the only reason we aren't on that stage with you is because we just aren't working hard enough or we haven't cleared our limiting beliefs. They referenced mean girls, but honestly, they really are a bunch of mean girls. I'm now so grateful that no one in my downline ever had more than a casual business. They were all just people like me who enjoyed the programs and sold them to a handful of people. It drove me crazy back then, but now I'm glad none of them wasted money on courses trying to figure out what was wrong with them. There was never anything wrong with any of us. We didn't have the advantages necessary to get to the top of the pyramid. We didn't start with a lot of disposable income. We weren't able to invest in social media ads. We didn't have rich husbands supporting us. We didn't get in at the beginning. We didn't have a huge network of ready-made customers to follow us from our last business. Those are all fantastic points, by the way, to prove that not everybody starts on an even playing field with an MLM. There are absolutely advantages. When my income began to decline, I felt like I was in a boat that had sprung a leak. While desperately trying to patch up the leak, another one would form, and then another. Forget growth, I was just trying to stem the bleeding and keep the ship afloat. There was always a part of me that knew if I got to the big time, I was exploiting people below me. I would say to my upline, but if I help 5 women get to where I am, what if they're also miserable and struggling? And she would say, everyone is responsible for their own success, which is not true, actually. Your story so far is perfect proof of that. Not everybody is responsible for their own success. It's the exact opposite, actually, which is proven by your exact situation, which is that your income is declining because your downline is crumbling. If you were truly responsible for your own success, you would not be falling down the pyramid right now because of other people choosing to quit. But wait, why do you need 5 women to run with you to get to elite again? Because you know it's not true. Everyone is not responsible for their own success. Everyone is responsible for their upline success, and I wasn't willing to get rich off of exploiting other people's labor. I'm not Jeff Bezos. Even when I took a step back and got an office job, I was still blaming myself. I had been so indoctrinated for so long, I felt like an utter failure. Maybe taking a job will take the financial pressure off and my business will grow again. Maybe I'll be able to find the right people this time. I was now one of those people who couldn't hack it, and with all the personal development I had taken in, I felt ashamed to have a day job. You're either building someone else's dream or your dream. There's a lot of regular job shaming in the MLM and the entrepreneurial world. At one point, I had such anxiety that it resulted in severe insomnia and I didn't sleep for days. I watched the documentary The Vow about the cult NXIVM, and the first couple of episodes seemed really familiar. I laughed to myself thinking, wow, I might have joined a cult. Then I watched Lula Rich, and even though their structure was so different from mine, I saw the similarities. I discovered content like yours and Cece Suarez, and seeing all the same jargon reflected back in each MLM helped me see that I was not in fact a failure. The system was designed for me to fail, and actually, since I hadn't lost money, I was one of the few success stories. I was in the 1 to 2% of people who actually make money off of it. In a way, I kind of did lose money though. I could have spent those 7 years in an office job with benefits, getting 401k matching, and not having to buy health insurance in the marketplace. I might have been promoted a few times and could be earning a much higher income. If I had been in a regular sales job and hit or exceeded my monthly quota 1, 2, 3, 7 years in a row without ever missing a month, I sure surely would have been promoted a couple of times and received year-end bonuses. But in Beachbody, the bonuses are only given to people with huge downlines because it's not really about selling the product. I try not to think about it too much as there's no point. I can't go back in time and I have a good job now with a great boss and friends who support me. When I started opening up about leaving my MLM, a lot of people reached out and said that I was the only hun who accepted their no and didn't push them. So that's something to be proud of. I got a lot fewer blocks and didn't burn any bridges with anyone close to me. I've learned a lot from my experience and hopefully can help others. This turned into an essay that grew as things kept coming to me. I'm sure I'll keep seeing old memories in a new light as I keep unraveling all the mind. But for now, this has been super cathartic. Thanks for holding space. I hope I can be a cautionary tale to anyone thinking of joining an MLM, that even the top 2% are not doing that great. So all the lavish lifestyles you see, that's maybe 0.005% of the people, or they are faking it to attract recruits. It's not proof that you can do it, it's proof that someone already has so many people under them that you are going to struggle a lot to get anyone to sign up under you. I'm now just a regular human with a day job and a cat, doing opera gigs on the side, working out for myself and not posting it on social media, and in the best financial position I've ever been in my life. I'm so much happier now and no longer blaming myself. I'm grateful that I got out relatively unscathed, and so did everyone on my team. I'm looking forward to the next chapter of my life and would tell anyone thinking of joining an MLM, please don't. You can make way more money in a boring day job, waiting tables, or driving for Uber. Regular jobs are awesome. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have and spill any tea on Beachbody as someone who is moderately successful and went on retreats with some of the heavy hitters. Wow. Thank you for sending in all of your experiences, because I think so much of what you are saying confirms a lot of what we discuss on this channel. Recruitment is everything, and saturation really is the death of your upward progress in the pyramid. The incentive trips are total scams within themselves, and this weird idolization of people at the top of the company, all of it. I'm so appreciative for your perspective as somebody who was in the company and has all these firsthand experiences and can confirm that all these things really are going on, because I can sit here and talk about those things all the time, but what's really powerful is you sharing your experiences, because you have been there, you've been through it, and that kind of anecdotal evidence is so powerful in preventing other people from getting involved with MLM. So thank you for sending in your story. This story says, "Hi Hannah, I'd like to keep this anonymous as this person is still in my life. Because of this, I will be slightly changing some details. The tale of woe will involve exploitation of a disabled child, health claims, and overall hun misbehavior, perpetuated by a Plexus rep that I will just call PR. PR is a distant relative of mine whose entire family is a sheltered group of MLM huns. PR sells Plexus, her mom sells Young Living, her sisters sell Monate and Lila Rose. PR's bad behavior began years ago when I was young and blissfully unaware of MLMs. All I knew was that this relative sold expensive supplements. They lived on a farm, so I thought, well, that's nice, maybe they grow some of the ingredients. Oh, my poor young dumb self. When we returned home from visiting them one day, my mom told me she had purchased some of the supplements from PR. My mother struggled with weight loss at the time, and PR had promised her Plexus would help her lose weight. Plus, my father has Tourette's, and PR had told her that Plexus could help with that as well. In hindsight, that is nasty to promote. Spoilers, it did neither. My mom stopped buying it after a couple of months because it was just too expensive for our family to budget in. Plus, it wasn't doing anything. I didn't pay much attention to PR in the years following. She posted on Facebook every day, usually mentioning Plexus, but it didn't click for me that this was an MLM until I stumbled across the anti-MLM community through those Reddit story videos. It was like a light went off and I saw MLMs everywhere. This is where PR's story gets nasty. Some quick background, PR is extremely anti-doctors, anti-vax, and obsessed with all natural. I hold no hate towards people who think this way. I was raised this way, and I understand the fear that goes on. It takes a long time to make your way out of that circle of thought. The issue in PR's case was that she has an extremely disabled child. I can only guess based on what PR shows, and she shows a lot, that this child has undiagnosed cerebral palsy or something of similar level of developmental delay. I say undiagnosed because she never took her child to a doctor to be fully diagnosed. She never says what his disability is because she doesn't know. She's working with a natural physical therapist and chiropractor, not a doctor, for her child's care plan, and of course, Plexus and essential oils. She posts daily about how grateful she is to Plexus for, quote, giving her the energy to care for her child, and how if more people purchase from her, she'll be able to spend more time with the child like she wants to. She's a stay-at-home mom, so she should be able to spend as much time with him as she needs, right? Unfortunately, we all know how MLMs steal your life away. PR overshares her child's care routines and issues constantly and always manages to tie in a plug for Plexus. It makes me ill. Did I mention a part of the child's care involves sniffing Young Living oils sold by PR's mom? Absolutely abhorrent. PR is also one of the worst Huns when it comes to health claims, and I'll include some screenshots of some of her posts if I can. Okay, yes, here's the first one you sent. It says, these products can help you if you struggle with sleep, weight, cholesterol, any pain, brain fog, lack of energy, blood sugar imbalance, focus, inflammation, bloating, stomach issues, autoimmune disease, and so much more. And the second post that you included here says, a quick summary of health issues that Plexus helps is, and a whole list, including but not limited to anxiety, depression, eczema, IBS, blood pressure, sugar cravings, thyroid health, ADHD, and PCOS. At the bottom it says, we can't claim or guarantee results, but we have seen Plexus help people with all of these things by healing the gut and proper nutrition. Yikes. Huge yikes. These are not good. This is super non-compliant, actually. It's against the company's policies to be making any kind of health claims like this, to be saying that Plexus can help with any of these kinds of conditions. I imagine if the company got wind of her posting these kinds of things, they would not be happy with that. It's also extremely unethical to be saying such a thing because those claims are not supported. They don't have any evidence backing them up. They're not true as far as we know, as far as science tells us. The best evidence that MLM supplements have is personal testimony, the personal experiences that people have had with the products, which honestly is not very strong evidence. So in my opinion, for her to be claiming these things about Plexus products is extremely unethical. This happens consistently. Now you would think, wow, PR posts so much. She loves the company. She spends hours away from her child to sell. Surely she's at a top rank. Surely she's making money worth her effort. But you would be wrong. Currently, PR claims to be at the gold rank of Plexus, and she celebrated hitting senior gold several months ago. That sounds great, right? Well, as we know, it's easy to lose these ranks. According to Plexus Recognition, she's actually 2 ranks lower at senior silver, just 1 rank higher than the lowest rank in the company. After 6 years, she is back where she started. I've asked PR personally if she makes a profit in the company, and her response was, quote, not yet, but I'm only doing it for fun because I love it. But at the same time, she advertises it as her job, an income that impacts her family, and she spends all her time shilling for them. It honestly makes me sad. I'm sorry there isn't a huge conclusion to this story. However, I have been diligently documenting PR's claims, screenshotting what I can, and I have reported her to both the FTC and Plexus Compliance 3 times so far. If anything comes of it, I'll have an update, but for now, PR continues to lie, exploit her child, and run herself ragged for a company that couldn't care less. Thank you for reading if you do. I really needed to get this off my chest, and it's been driving me crazy for years now. Good for you for reporting her. It sucks because she is a family member and it feels kind of, I don't know, like a betrayal or something, but at the same time, what she's doing is extremely unethical and it is absolutely in violation of compliance. And in my opinion, the company should know about that. I'm sure that they would like to know about that. And at the end of the day, if people aren't reporting these claims, nobody's going to be held accountable and it's going to keep happening. So good for you for taking that initiative. And the information you're providing about her ranks is really eye-opening, isn't it? All right, so according to your story, it says that the highest that we know this family member to have gotten is senior gold, and this is the 6th rank in the company. That's rank 6 out of 11. But now at this moment, she's claiming to be at the rank of gold, which is rank number 5. But now you're seeing some Plexus documentation that's saying that she's actually even lower in the ranks than that. And she's personally admitted to you that she has not turned a profit in this company yet, and she's been in it for 6 years. And you know what? That's one thing if you join an MLM company and you sell things occasionally and you make a little commission here and there, and yeah, you're probably spending more on products for yourself than you're making back in commission. And it's fine if you want to do that and if that's the route you want to go, but do not portray yourself on social media to be a completely different thing. Don't be telling people this is your full-time job. Don't be be telling people that this income supports your family. Don't be posting about it constantly and acting like it's having this huge impact on your life financially when it's just not. And the fact that people do fabricate their reality on social media really speaks to the fact that it's all a facade. One of the ways that you make money in an MLM is you sell people a dream. You make them believe that if they join your team and if you can recruit them, that they're going to have a certain thing. You want it to be presented in the best light. So what do? You go on social media and you portray yourself living a life that you're not actually living, because the goal is to entice people to join your team so that you can actually live the life you want to be living and make the money that you want to be making. So it's almost kind of like this chicken or the egg situation, like which comes first, the actual monetary success or the illusion of monetary success that convinces people to join so that you can actually have monetary success. All of it's really sad, actually, when you think about it, because so much of your job duties when you're in an MLM goes towards trying to convince other people that they want what you have, regardless of if you have what you have, because most people don't. It's all a facade. It's just a performance that people put on for social media, all in the name of recruiting people. And I think your story is a really good example of that, so thank you for writing this one in. This one says, "Hi Hannah, ever since I got into the anti-MLM community, I've been binge watching so many creators. I'm just about caught up on your channel. I love everything you and others are doing in this space." Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. "Please call me Sam for this story. I've got a doozy for you. This is a little heavy on the cult part and it's a little long-winded. For some context, I was born into a cult. For my own safety, I'm not going to name it. Let's just say it's a well-known one that has managed to gain some level of notoriety in the public eye. My whole family was and still is in this cult. I only left myself sometime within the last 5 years. Sorry, I'm being intentionally vague. This cult had complete and utter control of my life. My mother had fully drank the Kool-Aid and was a moral enforcer in our community, and I was her main target. After all, if her own daughter wasn't the perfect follower, then how was anyone else supposed to respect her authority? Growing up, I was homeschooled by the cult and was not allowed to attend college. I wasn't allowed to have a full-time job. The only thing I was allowed to do was work part-time at a company that had ties to the cult but wasn't actually a part of it. I honestly don't even know how much I was earning. My mother had my workplace use her bank account for my payments. All of the physical and emotional abuse finally wore me down. I was in a very dark place and I did something that almost couldn't be taken back. The fog lifted and I started getting help in secret. I was taking the steps to escape. One of which was opening up my own bank account. This is where the MLM comes in. At the time, I didn't realize I was being targeted for one. I was very vulnerable. When the guy signing me up asked me why I was opening my first bank account in my mid-20s, I word vomited my whole story to him. He seemed really sympathetic. He comforted me. He told me that my story really spoke to him and he wanted to help me as much as possible. He gave me his business card to call him outside of work. That was the biggest of red flags, but I was desperate and naive. He met me at a coffee shop and immediately started pitching me this amazing opportunity for financial freedom. It seemed too good to be true, and it was. I don't remember which MLM he was with, but it was one of the wellness ones because he pulled out a protein bar at some point. Literally, the only reason I didn't want to join was because I was in a cult at the time. Who the F was I going to recruit? And I had like $200 to my name that I managed to scrape together as my emergency fund. I already knew that when I left, I would have to heavily rely on government social programs until I could get my life sorted. I was just trying to set up as much of the basics before I fled. He still pushed me to join for almost a full hour. In the end, I had to stress to him exactly how poor I was. Looking back, that sounds absurd because he already knew that because he was my bank guy. I didn't think about that experience until I already left the cult and was settled into my new life. I was consuming a lot of content about cults by former cult members, and I started getting a lot of recommendations for anti-MLM stuff, and I fell down that rabbit hole. I know that MLMs target vulnerable individuals, but it turns out that I was too vulnerable to get recruited. Anyways, that's my very bizarre MLM encounter. I'm happy and healthy now, and I just want to thank this movement for keeping people from getting victimized. No one deserves to get taken advantage of for any reason. Keep up the wonderful work, Sam. What's funny about your story is that in the subject line, you said, being in a cult kept me from joining an MLM. And immediately I thought to myself, oh, that's great because you had all these red flags from your cult that prepped and primed you to notice the red flags about the MLM that you were being pitched. But actually, it was kind of the opposite. You were like, yeah, I'm on board, except I don't have any money. I'm totally broke. I'm trying to leave the cult. I don't have the resources to get set up with the MLM. That's why I'm not going to join it. That's not at all the direction that I thought your story was going to take just based on the subject line, but it makes perfect sense. Some people truly do not have the resources, the time, the money to get involved with MLM companies, and that ends up being a really good thing because odds are you would have lost more money and more time to the MLM if you did sign up for it. It would not have been a good way to get you on your feet and set you up for life outside of the cult, so I'm glad that you did not get involved with it after all. And it's entertaining that you're saying that only after the fact, when you were consuming content about cults, did you realize all the parallels and similarities to MLMs as well. Thank goodness you did not get involved with an MLM, because it truly would have been like going from one cult directly into another cult. Honestly, there are so many overlaps, and it would not have been a good thing for you. So kind of a blessing in disguise that you didn't have enough money to join, really. And you know what? It's really gross to think about this person who's working at a bank and helping you get set up with your bank account, and he's the one that's pitching you an MLM, because you have to imagine that there are lots of people that come to him at the bank to set up new bank accounts or to talk to him about money and finances. You have to wonder how many times he takes that opportunity to pitch people for his MLM. It's pretty problematic that he decided he was going to pitch you for this after you basically told him your whole life story and you were saying, I'm leaving the cult, I'm getting set up on my own, out in the real world, I'm setting up my first bank account, I have $200 to my name that I scraped together. And in his eyes, he thought that that was appropriate to think that you would be a good candidate for his MLM downline. That is so awful, but that's kind of the way that people think when they're in MLMs. They see everybody as an opportunity in that exact way. He probably smelled your vulnerabilities and saw that you were not in a good situation, and he tried to insert himself there for his own financial gain. Shame on him for doing that. Thank goodness you did not get signed up for this MLM. I'm so glad to hear that life is going great for you now outside of this cult, and thank you for sending in your story. And with that, my friends, that's all the stories I have for you for this horror stories video. Thank you to everyone who took the time to write in their stories. I'm so appreciative for you. Without you, quite literally, these videos would not exist. And again, just a reminder that if you do have your own stories that you would like to send in and have considered, check out the description box below. You can find the instructions on how to send your story to me. And again, thanks to Scentbird for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to check out the link in the description box below and use my code Alonzo55 at checkout for 55% off your first month at Scentbird. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.